What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out the Transformers Legacy United Deluxe Class Star Raiders Filch. Based on the Robots in Disguise TV show, Filch is a very clever retool of Kingdom Air Razor. Now, despite unfortunately never actually transforming in the TV show, she still is appearing to be incredibly close to the very little that we have so far seen from this design. So as we check out the details, she is packing one awesome head sculpt, which from the side perspective, I think is looking sharp. I also think that it's really neat how they have slightly modified the shoulder design in order to recreate the turbines, which would be a direct carryover from how she does appear once transformed into that chrome mode. Which, speaking of, even the brand new chest piece I think is looking sick, and as we spin down here to the legs, she is totally rocking some brand new mechanized shins, which are indeed packing the actual Starseeker insignia. Considering that she was pretty much a scavenger in the TV show, this definitely does make her the perfect recruit for Thundertron. As we spin her around here to the back, she is looking tidy, and in general, it is just great to have more 2015 characters finally make their way into the mainline. Despite her unfortunately having minimal screen time when it came down to Robots in Disguise, she has easily become one of the standouts of this Star Raider subline. Flying into her accessories, Filch does include a pair of two inbuilt arm blades. These are also surprisingly incredibly well articulated, so when it does come down to slicing and dicing the likes of Strong Arm up on the battlefield, she should have absolutely no issue in doing so. Cruising through her posability, despite being a retool of a pre-existing mold, she may just be the best articulated version out of the bunch. So to begin with, the head has no issues in looking up all of the way, which I think is sick, especially for a character who does have the ability of flight. She can then also begin to look down upon her victims, and in addition to that, can also turn both left to right. The shoulders have no issues in kicking forwards, in kicking backwards. They can then also kick out to the side, rotate here at the bicep, and then begin to bend here at the elbow. Unfortunately, due to the way she does transform, she is lacking the iconic wrist articulation, although due to the posability of her forearm blades, she still should have no issues in mincing up her opponents. In addition to that, the waist can spin both left to right, the hips can kick outwards roughly to that far, and can also begin to move both forwards and backwards. So when it does come down to pulling a surprise move on the battlefield, Filch should have no issues in totally rocking the splits. The thigh can spin all the way around, and the knee can bend way past 90, mainly due to transformation, but again, that does allow for a sick range. When it comes down here to the ankles, these are ball jointed, so in addition to rocking forwards and backwards, can also begin to rock both side to side. You are able to get her into some pretty sick in-flight poses. But as I'm sure you guys all know by now, to see the true power of this scavenger, now let's put her through the pose test. Blasting our way into some robot mode size comparisons, first up we are whacking out the original Kingdom Air Razor. Now, despite only being a retool, there is a pretty striking difference between the two. So in addition to that brand new paint scheme, which by the way guys absolutely slaps, she is packing a brand new head sculpt, new shoulders, a new chest unit, brand new forearm blades, new shins, and when it does come down to the backpack along with the wings are mostly completely brand new. So to see them retool as many components as they have really does give me hope that maybe in the future we can see even more 2015 characters make their way into the mainline. Which, speaking of, here we have the Legacy Evolution Strong Arm, and I thought that it was a great carryover how both of these baddies are totally rocking the electrified blue, which we did see throughout most of the designs on the TV show. The only downside between this comparison is that unfortunately we never saw these two actually do battle both in their robot modes. Next up we have the Star Raiders Lockdown. Now, I was expecting this repaint to absolutely dominate the Star Raider subline, but I'm gonna be honest guys, alongside Cannonball, right now Filch is absolutely reigning supreme, and the same can even be said as we bring out the Prime Universe Thundertron, considering that his upcoming Leader Class release is pretty much gonna be near exactly the same as this figure. Then finally, as I'm sure you guys all know by now, because no Transformers review is ever complete without the myth, the legend, that is the Earthrise Optimus Prime. propelling our way into her transformation. For the first step, take a hold of the shoulder and angle this here outwards. We can then spin inwards by making use of the bicep joints, and we are then going to take the wrist and angle this here downwards. Again guys, now let's make sure to do the same for the opposite side. So slide the shoulder there outwards, rotate inwards at the bicep, and then slide downwards by making use out of the wrist joint. We can then come down here to the pretty awesome looking legs, and we are now going to spin around by making use out of that thigh joint. Again guys, now let's make sure to do the same for the opposite side until eventually the back should now be facing the front. We can then spin around here to her awesome backpack, because we are now going to make use out of all of those multi-layered hinge joints and detach these wings away from the actual backpack. So extend these here outwards, and again guys, make sure to do the same for the opposite side. With that now complete, we can then take a hold of the mechanized butt plate and begin to angle this here upwards. You are then going to take a hold of her backpack and angle this here downwards, because we are now going to spin around here to the front, which is where we are going to take the entire upper torso and extend it upwards. So to do this, you are going to pinch both the front and the back and give this here a sharp tug upwards. The aim of the game is to completely extend both of those double hinge joints, which should then allow for enough clearance for us to then take the entire crow head and begin to slide her robot mode head sculpt inside that hollow cavity. And the aim of the game here is to line all of those tabs and slots up with the actual backpack itself. Once that's complete, we can then spin back round here to the front. We are now going to make use out of those wrist joints and slide them inside these hollow cavities exactly like that. Again guys, now let's make sure to do the same for the opposite side. So angle this here inwards exactly like this. It is now at this point where you can take the waist joint and spin this around until again the back is now facing the front. With that now complete, we can make use out of not only the hip joint but also the knee joint. So we are going to bring this here forwards. We are then going to compress the knee here downwards exactly like this, and that slot is going to line up very nicely with that tab. So snap that there into place. We can then make use out of this hinge joint and begin to slide this here upwards. And as I'm sure you guys would then guess, let's now do the same for the opposite side. So kick forwards, make use out of that knee bend and begin to slide here downwards. We can then extend outwards and slide that tab into that slot. Finally, we are now going to make use out of this hinge joint and slide this here all the way up until eventually you should be left with something which looks exactly like this. It is now where we can begin to whack back out those awesome mechanized wings, as these are going to very nicely slide into the ports on the underside until eventually Filch should be looking exactly like this. Scavenging her way through the battlefield in pursuit of anything shiny, here we have Filch now fully transformed into her beast mode. Now when it does come down to a full-blown mechanized crow, again I think she is looking incredibly close to the actual CG design. So as we check out the details, the brand new crow head sculpt I think is looking sick. Much like Airazor, she is even packing intentional jaw articulation, so should have no issues in spouting off her most iconic quotes. I think by far the best part about the crow mode for myself though would have to be the wicked wings, which when it does come down to detail are looking awesome. I do wish that maybe she could have been bumped up to the Voyager class price point though, seeing as the character in the show was absolutely massive. But as we spin her down here to the underside, she's even packing some incredibly sharp claws, so along with those wings should have no issues in mincing up her opponents. And despite some of the undercarriage kibble, which is a direct carryover from Airazor, she is still surprisingly incredibly well articulated, meaning that you are able to get her into again some pretty dynamic poses. So despite only being a retool, she is incredibly well done, and as mentioned beforehand, it is single-handedly awesome to finally see more of these 2015 characters find their way through the multiversal portal into the Legacy universe. Nesting our way into some beast mode size comparisons, first up we are once again whacking back out that Transformers Kingdom Airazor. Now I'm not sure if it's due to me still being on that Rise of the Beast hype train, but surely I'm not the only one that thinks that maybe this Filch could perhaps pass off as being a corrupted version of Airazor. At least to myself, I think this could make for a pretty decent stand-in, but as we spin these two baddies here to the side, you guys can again tell the key differences, especially when it comes down to the brand new mechanized wings. Flying through some additional comparisons, again we are whacking back out that Legacy Evolution strong arm. Now despite these creating for 2 awesome companion pieces, as I mentioned beforehand guys, there is no denying that Filch should be considerably larger. Had Hasbro maybe pulled out all of the stops in making this design into a full-blown Voyager class, I think those details could have looked even sicker than they already do. Here is how she stacks up alongside a fellow Star Seeker. We have Lockdown, the leader of the Space Pirates, the Prime Universe Thundertron, then finally the myth, the legend that is the Earthrise Optimus Prime. So, wrapping up on this review for the Transformers Legacy United Deluxe class Filch. Despite only being a retool, she is still packing a punch when it comes down to robot mode, and despite us unfortunately never really getting a great glimpse of the character in the show, she still does appear to be incredibly accurate. The beast mode though I think is by far where the money shot is at, especially when you check out those brand new mechanized wings. Surprisingly, they did retool a lot when it comes down to this figure, to the point where alongside Cannonball, I think she has to be by far one of the strongest entries from this Star Raiders subline. If you are like myself and were a big fan of some of those 2015 designs, then honestly guys, I don't really think you can go wrong with this figure. I would love to get your guys' thoughts on Filch down in the comment section below. What do you guys think? I want to thank you all so much for watching, and until my next review, transform and roll out!